Did you know that in the merciless Wild West, the average lifespan was as low as 35 years? Why, you may wonder? Well, today's episode will answer just that. Welcome back to Wild History. The American frontier, my friends, was no place for the faint of heart. In just under 70 years, the United States transformed from a modest landmass of about 300,000 square miles, comprising the original 13 colonies, into a behemoth that spanned the entire continental expanse we know today. Can you believe it? A mind-boggling 2.8 million square miles were devoured in one of the wildest land grabs in history. But let me tell you, this expansion was no walk in the park. The American frontier was a wild, untamed beast, challenging even the bravest souls. You had to possess a special kind of crazy to survive out there. All right, let's dive into some filthy events that unfolded during this remarkable period. The Perils of Traveling West. When pioneers set out on their journey to the American frontier, they weren't signing up for a leisurely road trip. They were in for a bone-shaking, nerve-wracking adventure like no other, with no smooth highways, no GPS to guide them, just a whole lot of grit and determination. First off, let's talk about roads, or rather, the lack thereof. Imagine traversing rugged terrain without the luxury of a paved path. It was like trying to navigate through a maze of dirt and rocks, with wagon wheels sinking in the mud and jolting over potholes leading to accidents and deaths. And let's not forget Mother Nature's little surprises. Extreme weather conditions were the pioneers' constant companions. Whether it was scorching heat or bone-chilling cold, they had to endure it all. And just when they thought they had seen it all, violent storms would unleash their fury, drenching them in torrents of rain or pelting them with hailstones the size of baseballs. But the challenges didn't stop there. Encounters with Native American tribes added another layer of danger. Sometimes peaceful negotiations turned into heart-pounding clashes. Those pioneers had to be on high alert, ready to defend themselves from unexpected encounters and keep their wits about them. Lawlessness and Violence. Moving on, it was a time when the law was often outgunned, and the line between right and wrong blurred in a haze of gun smoke. Let's shine a light on the notorious outlaws who etched their names into the annals of frontier infamy. Infamous outlaw gangs like the James Younger Gang and the Dalton Gang terrorized the Wild West. One such legend was Jesse James, a notorious bandit whose exploits struck fear into the hearts of many. His gang, like a gang of desperados, roamed the untamed landscape, leaving a trail of violence and stolen riches in their wake. Common crimes were as abundant as cacti in the desert. Stagecoach robberies were the stuff of nightmares for those traveling with their precious cargo. These daring bandits would strike with lightning speed, leaving innocent travelers trembling in their wake. And then there was the infamous act of cattle rustling. Ranchers who toiled day and night to build their herds fell victim to ruthless thieves who would brazenly abscond with their valuable livestock. The loss of these hard-earned animals meant devastation for those struggling to make a living in this harsh and unforgiving land. But perhaps the most iconic were the epic shootouts that took place in rowdy saloons. Picture a dimly lit room filled with the tense energy of gunslingers ready to draw at a moment's notice. These duels of life and death were not mere spectacles. They were the ultimate test of skill and survival. One such notorious incident was the Variety Hall shootout in 1873, where a simple disagreement over who should relinquish their weapons escalated into a blood-soaked showdown. Moreover, behind the tales of lawlessness, real-life incidents painted a grim picture. The infamous Hatfield-McCoy feud tore through the Appalachian Mountains, claiming lives and tearing families apart. It was a bitter clash fueled by stolen livestock, personal vendettas, and a thirst for revenge. Harsh living conditions. Continuing our journey through the Wild West, we stumble upon the harsh realities of life. Let's start with housing, or the lack thereof. Settlers often found themselves without proper shelter, resorting to desperate measures like constructing sod houses with walls made of stacked sod, dirt floors, and a roof that barely kept out the elements. It was far from luxurious, but it was a roof over their heads. Now, let's talk about hygiene and sanitation. Common items that people in this day and age take for granted did not exist. Shampoo? Nope. Toilet paper? Nada. Fly spray? No way. Clean water was a luxury in these parts, with settlers often relying on contaminated sources that led to widespread illness and disease. Dysentery, cholera, and typhoid were unwelcome guests in these communities, claiming lives left and right. The cholera outbreak of 1849, fueled by poor sanitation and limited access to clean water, claimed countless lives. And as if that wasn't bad enough, vermin and pests ran rampant, turning even the simplest tasks into a battle. Imagine trying to cook a meal only to have your supplies invaded by hungry rodents or insects. It was a constant struggle to keep these unwelcome guests at bay. But the hardships didn't end there. Medical care was primitive at best, with grisly procedures and limited resources. If you were unlucky enough to fall ill or sustain an injury, your options were limited, to say the least. And let's not forget the ever-present threat of early death. Life expectancy on the frontier was shockingly low. Women in particular faced additional hardships, lacking access to basic necessities like sanitary pads, which contributed to early deaths. Women's plight on the frontier. Speaking of women, life was undeniably tough for everyone, but women faced a unique set of challenges in a predominantly male-dominated society. They were often relegated to traditional roles and subjected to limited rights and opportunities. These brave women faced a constant battle against societal expectations. They were often taken advantage of in the cruelest ways, with young girls being particularly vulnerable to exploitation and slavery. Imagine the heart-wrenching reality of innocent lives torn from their families and forced into servitude at a tender age. It is a tragic aspect of frontier life that cannot be ignored. But amidst these hardships, some women defied the limitations imposed upon them. They rose above societal constraints, making significant contributions to their communities and leaving an indelible mark on history. Women like Susan B. Anthony, who fought tirelessly for women's suffrage, and Calamity Jane, who broke barriers as a frontierswoman and scout, proved that strength and resilience knew no gender boundaries. Native American conflicts. During the Wild West era, clashes between settlers and Native American tribes are unfortunately commonplace. The expansion of settlers in the Wild West led to forced displacement and marginalization of Native American tribes. They endured a series of injustices, including land seizures, broken treaties, and forced relocations. The consequences were devastating, resulting in immense suffering and loss of life. The settlers faced constant fear and uncertainty as they sought to establish their presence in unfamiliar territories. Meanwhile, Native American tribes fought fiercely to protect their ancestral lands and preserve their way of life. However, the Wild West witnessed numerous brutal massacres that forever stained its history. One such infamous event was the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890, where U.S. soldiers mercilessly killed approximately 300 Lakota Sioux, including women and children. Another haunting chapter was the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864, where U.S. Army troops, led by Colonel John Shivington, launched an unprovoked attack on a peaceful Cheyenne and Arapaho village in Colorado. Over 150 Native American men, women, and children were killed, many of them subjected to horrifying mutilations. The Battle of Washita River in 1868 was another brutal clash, led by General George Armstrong Custer. The U.S. Army attacked a Cheyenne village along the Washita River in present-day Oklahoma, resulting in the deaths of around 150 Cheyenne, mostly women, children, and the elderly. While each of these incidents was characterized by its own unique brutality, the Wounded Knee Massacre stands as one of the most tragic and horrifying events, symbolizing the immense suffering endured by Native American communities during the Wild West era.